Hi, I'm Tabitha, and this is my presentation to determine the best material for an artificial blood vessel. Before we get started on comparing specific materials, here is a short background. Ever since 1896, surgeries have been going on to replace blood vessels because they are vital to bring blood throughout the body and keep people alive. Initially, they were replaced by grafting a piece of healthy blood vessel to an unhealthy vessel, but since 1969, synthetic materials have also been used in repairing these vessels. The top two materials for them to be constructed out of are polyethylene, PET, and polytetraroroethylene, PTFE. Using synthetic materials for blood vessels has been a great medical breakthrough because they are easily cleaned, stored, and have the ability to have antibiotics put into them. In order to replace a blood vessel, the material must be strong, cost-effective, the correct size, and manufactured from a biocompatible material. The carotid arteries are two primary arteries and can be found in the neck. The average carotid artery diameter for an adult male is 7 millimeters and has a blood flow rate of 5,100 millimeters cubed per second. This artery was chosen because it is one of the largest. Research revealed that replacement blood vessels with a diameter greater than 6 millimeters typically last a longer time. Outside pressure against the carotid artery was determined to be 6.67 times 10 to the negative 3 megapascals. Since the beginning of artificial blood vessels, both PET and PTFE have been the top two choices. A third possible material for artificial blood vessels is polyether ether ketone, PEEK. In order to determine the best possible material, three sizes of arteries needed to be created. The first had a length of 1 millimeter, the second 10 millimeters, and the third 100 millimeters. This is to make sure that the chosen material can work for a replacement of any size. The inner and outer diameter match that of the carotid artery with an inner diameter of 5 millimeters and an outer diameter of 7 millimeters. Each of the three blood vessels underwent a flow simulation. The flow simulation was based on an extreme flow rate of 5 times the normal flow rate. This is to allow for any error in calculation as well as any change in the flow rate of the blood in the person with a replaced vessel. It was determined that the material does not influence flow rate. Because these are simple models, we are not concerned with any friction, but rather just the true nature of blood. The blood flow rate used was 25,000 millimeters cubed per second. Environmental pressure of 0.101325 megapascals was applied to the opposite side of the blood vessel. The maximum pressure felt on each model was 0.101365 megapascals for the 1 millimeter, 0.101348 megapascals for the 10 millimeter, and 0.102147 megapascals for the 100 millimeter. Through the recorded maximum pressures, force simulations were able to be created for each model. These pressures correspond to the maximum pressure that is expected to be exerted on the inside of each individual blood vessel. On the outside of each blood vessel, a pressure of 6.67 times 10 to the negative 3 megapascals was applied, as researched. Fixtures were applied on the ends of each vessel to exemplify that the synthetic vessel would be attached to the real blood vessel. Results from each simulation demonstrated how much stress and strain each piece undergoes with the same forces, but specific materials and sizes. For a 1 millimeter blood vessel made from PET, the maximum stress was 0.1975 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 3.695 times 10 to the negative 5. This force simulation was then ran on the 10 millimeter blood vessel. For a 10 millimeter blood vessel made from PET, the maximum stress was 0.4237 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 1.012 times 10 to the negative 4. This same simulation was then ran on the 100 millimeter blood vessel. For a 100 millimeter blood vessel made from PET, the maximum stress was 0.3809 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 9.621 times 10 to the negative 5. These same simulations were then ran on both the PTFE material and the PEEK. For a 1 millimeter blood vessel made from PTFE, the maximum stress was 0.1736 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 7.891 times 10 to the negative 5. For a 10 millimeter blood vessel made from PTFE, the maximum stress was 0.4053 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 2.337 times 10 to the negative 4. For a 100 millimeter blood vessel made from PTFE, the maximum stress was 0.3740 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 2.229 times 10 to the negative 4. For a 1 millimeter blood vessel made from PEEK, the maximum stress was 0.1839 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 2.736 times 10 to the negative 5. For a 10 millimeter blood vessel made from PEEK, the maximum stress exerted upon it was 0.4137 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 7.822 times 10 to the negative 5. For a 100 millimeter blood vessel made from PEEK, the maximum stress was 0.3752 megapascals, and the maximum strain was 7.449 times 10 to the negative 5. These results are laid out in this simple table here. This table shows the cost and performance in order to choose the best possible material for a replacement blood vessel. Observations from the table show that, though each material greatly differ in cost, they didn't appear to differ greatly in performance. It was expected that PEEK would have a greater performance than the PET and PTFE because it costs 157 times more than PET and 66 times more than PTFE. This graph shows a direct comparison between the material's stress performance and the length of the model. The graph shows that three materials, they all correlated in maximum stress felt. PET performed the worst of the three materials, PTFE performed the best. However, the percent difference between PET and PTFE were relatively low. The greatest difference between the 2 points happened for the 1 millimeter vessel and has a percent difference of 12.88%. This graph shows a direct comparison between the material's strain performance and the length of the model. The graph also shows that the three materials correlate trend-wise in the maximum strain felt on each artificial blood vessel, but at a largely different magnitude. PTFE performed the worst of the three materials. PEEK performed the best, but the PTFE difference was only slightly different than the PET. The greatest difference between PET and PEEK happened for the 1 millimeter vessel and has a percent difference of 29.82%, as shown. In conclusion, the chosen material for an artificial blood vessel of a length between 1 millimeter to 100 millimeters is PET. PET was determined to be the best because of the low cost and low percent difference in strain. Even though PET performed the worst in the stress simulations, it only did so by 12.88% to PTFE. PTFE performed the best in the stress simulations, but performed the worst in the strain simulations by 29.82%. This, accompanied by the 81.69% difference in cost, led to the decision that PET performed better than PTFE. The PEEK performed close to the PET in the stress simulation and the best in the strain simulations. However, the large cost difference between PEEK led to it being discarded and not chosen for the artificial blood vessel material. The cost difference between PET and PEEK was determined to be a markup of 197.48%. Therefore, PET is the best material for an artificial blood vessel. Thank you for watching. Here are the references.